Hello and welcome to a special Halloween episode of the Film Pulse podcast, and we have something very special lined up for you this year. We're going to be crossing over onto our other show, Saved by the 90s, to bring you a two-part show focusing on 90s Japanese horror. My name is Adam Patterson, and today I'm joined by my partner in crime on Saved by the 90s, Ken Bakley. Hey, Ken.
Hello.
Given the subject matter we're covering on this show, we thought it prudent to bring on another guest, the host of the Eiga Night podcast and the guy who covers just about everything Asian cinema related on Film Pulse, Chris Luciantonio. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me. I can almost guarantee you won't regret this.
That's all we ask.
After listening to your podcast, I was like, you know what? He's going to be a good guest. He has a good podcast voice. He knows how to do a podcast correctly. You know, I've had guests in the past where it's like their first time doing a podcast and they struggle with it a little bit, but I think you're going to be good to go on this.
He's talking about me.
Oh.
I wasn't, but okay.
I know, but just in case.
I actually wasn't even thinking of anybody specific. I'll say my last, I think it was last year's Halloween special on the 90s podcast when we had my friend Adam, who's like this big horror guy. I think he struggled a little bit. That was the first time he ever did a podcast. I'll call him out because he's a friend.
Well, when we started the Saved by the 90s podcast, that was what I'd done like 3 episodes of the weekly podcast. So I became a podcast co-host on my 4th episode of a podcast ever.
Yeah, but you did good on all those other ones because those were like big episodes that you were on. Those weren't like little rinky-dink. Those were big specials when we talked about a lot of movies.
Didn't on the first one we talk about like 8 movies in one
yeah
week?
Yeah, it was long, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Now you may be asking yourself, hey, wait a minute, where's Kevin? This show just isn't the same without Kevin's sultry voice accompanying that horrific audio that he has. But sadly, despite being instrumental in planning this special, he was the one who came up with the theme, actually. He wasn't able to join us, but I'm sure that he's with us all in spirit. I hope he's listening to this, by the way.
That makes it sound like he's passed away.
I know. Well, he's still alive. He's still alive and in good health, I think. Yes, exactly.
Joining us today is Ghost Kevin.
The ghost of Kevin Rakestraw. So the plan is we're going to cover 4 titles in this episode, and then that'll release on the main weekly feed, which should publish on Monday, the 28th of October. And then the second part will cover 4 more movies that will be released on the Saved by the 90s feed and come out on Halloween, October 31st. I want to thank everyone for joining us today on this journey into Japanese horror. Remember to leave a comment on your podcast provider of choice. Give us a nice review if you could. And without further ado, I think we can jump into our first review, which is a doozy. We're talking about 964 Pinocchio. We
will talk about this and no other movie.
I can't believe we're starting here.
Yeah. This is the one. We're starting with this one. This is also called Screams of Blasphemy, according to IMDb.
Which is a title that doesn't really, that even that title does not capture what happens in this movie.
Exactly. It's directed by Shozin Fukuai. I'm just going to lay it out there now. I'll probably mispronounce a lot of names during this special, so I apologize in advance. Chris, maybe you can chime in with correct pronunciations if you know them.
I mean, I'll try. I'm only 7 episodes deep into my own podcast, and I still get regularly corrected, both in comments and by my co-host who actually speaks the language, so...
Yeah, it's tough, but I'm going to try my best. I have a synopsis here. Pinocchio 964, lobotomized cyborg sex slave, is thrown out onto the street by his owners because of his inability to maintain an erection. He is befriended by a criminally insane, memory-wiped homeless girl. Meanwhile, I'm not making this up, this is the real synopsis. Meanwhile, the corporate entity who manufactured and sold him plots to kill him because of his malfunction. Now, Chris...
And then things get weird.
Yeah. Chris, since you're our guest, why don't you get us started? What did you think of 964 Pinocchio?
Oh, thank you so much for giving me the honors here. The question really is where to begin. I'm normally quite the fan of most what could be considered Japanese cyberpunk, which this is firmly embedded in that aesthetic and genre. And I found this entire thing incredibly grating. It's so hard both to discern what is happening, what it means, and where it's going. And it just really pushes my buttons in terms of my gag reflex and my sensitivity to moving images and how fast they can come at you.
Yeah.
I think there's something here in terms of a visceral kind of reaction, but I don't think I want it. And with this subject matter, I just felt like Chosen was just having a little bit of fun with us. And I don't know. Please, someone take this away from my summation here, because I don't know where to go.
I want to say words about this, and I don't know which words to use.
Gross, I think, would be a good starting point. It's a very gross movie. There's a lot
an ending point.
There's a lot of fluids happening in this movie. I think you bring up some pretty salient points, Chris. It is an extremely grating. I mean, even from like the first moments of this movie, I found myself being very annoyed by everything that was happening on screen. Now, I guess I'm maybe a casual fan of the whole the Japanese cyberpunk trend that was happening. I'm not a huge fan of Tetsuo the Iron Man, which is probably one of the most notable in that line, if I'm not mistaken. Or Akira, I guess you could even lump Akira into that. But
both are canonical texts when what we consider Japanese cyberpunk. Absolutely.
I really like Akira, but I'm not super well versed into that time period. If this movie is any indication of what the other films and media in this genre are like, I don't think I want any part of it, because this is just, it's too much.
It's very discordant.
Yeah.
Very.
It's hard to discern what's happening.
So like the synopsis says, you have this the cyborg person, and when he meets up with the young woman who loses her, I guess she lost her memory too, and she's trying to teach him his name, and she just keeps saying Pinocchio over and over again for like 15 minutes straight. I wanted to kill myself.
And Pinocchio's over there moaning and groaning.
Yeah.
Just filling out the soundtrack with nothing but that.
Yeah. All he does is just makes these like guttural noises.
I mean, mood.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But I guess this film is set in the future. I don't know exactly when the future, but that's a 2019 mood right there.
Yeah.
Just laying noises around and moaning and groaning.
Just rolling around in our own garbage, our own filth.
Yeah. Yeah, whenever someone's rolling around in filth in this movie, which is about every third scene, I just wanted to like take a screenshot of it and like caption it when you read the news the first thing in the morning.
I should have made a GIF out of that vomiting scene when she
yes, that's what I meant.
Oh, don't you dare.
No, I wouldn't. That scene horrified me. When
you keep reading the news throughout the day. That was my breaking point with this film, when I realized it's not going to get better. Like its thematic points aren't going to get more cogent. It's always going to be this dirge of noise and action just afflicted onto you. Like when it's a very kind of like that scene where she eats the vomit in the train station. Like I'm reminded of Possession and how much better it did that kind of breakdown in public scene. And like this can be done artfully, and right. 964 Pinocchio isn't doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I even have in my notes here that there was a poorly done Possession-esque sequence.
Okay, I wasn't the only one.
Yeah, involving the vomiting scene when it's like a mountain of vomit, and she's like rolling, like playing in the mountain of, looks like scrambled eggs. It was really, oof.
I kept watching that, trying to determine what that was.
It looked like scrambled eggs to me.
What kind of food they used for that?
I don't know, but it was horrible. It was all just really difficult to watch.
It's a lot of things that you're not sure what it's building towards. Like it's putting you through a lot, but there's no theme.
Right. So you have this, like, I mean, the plot is just so thin. There's just nothing there. I mean, he's like the woman, I guess, is trying to sort of assimilate him into society, I guess, but she's not really assimilated into society either. And then you have like the company who made him, and they're trying to get him back or kill him or do something. And it just, none of it made much sense. It was very surreal, very abstract. I thought that, I mean, one good thing that I'll say about it is I like the use of the fisheye, which was a lot of fisheye going on in this. And I thought a lot of it looked kind of cool. Like the scene they were in like a supermarket, like running around in the supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that some of the cinematography did look pretty cool. A lot of it I was just sort of baffled by, though. Like, where the hell does this woman live? Like, it looks like she lives in some kind of nest that's filled with trash. I can't wrap my head around like what she uses as a dwelling.
It's like a sewer pipe that's abandoned, and she just makes do with what she has. She's living her best life.
I guess that's what it is.
That's all we can ask of anyone, really.
Just drawing out maps, trying to reclaim her memory. And then there's like, not only do we have the incessant groaning of Pinocchio and her trying to teach him his stupid name, we also have that there's like 3 songs in this, and it's like 30-second loops. Not even that. They're like 15-second loops, and it's like they took a loop from GarageBand and just stuck it in there, and it's just looping nonstop over and over again. I mean, I feel like it's a deliberately confrontational movie that like challenges you to be entertained by it.
Yeah, I could agree with that, because I think it's also built into how it was shot, because a lot of the scenes that take place on the streets, I don't know if I was the only one that picked up on this, but they clearly don't have any permits or notice to be there.
Oh, definitely not.
They are just in public screaming and doing what they will with this script. And the poor Japanese public, I'm guessing this takes place in Tokyo, are just looking on, confused, just like the audience.
Yeah, I picked up on that too. It definitely looked like this was shot guerrilla style, because a lot of the people look genuinely horrified at whatever's happening on the streets here.
Yeah, you'll notice that it seems like whenever they're running, whenever that's happening, the camera never really stops moving.
Nope.
Like they didn't have time to lock it down.
The other thing I have written down here is cherry bowl of saliva.
Oh,
what was going on with that?
Just like added insult to injury, like, because that was like a topper scene, really. That was like the last really disgusting point this film has for it, and it has no basis. It's not introduced. It's just there.
Ken, what's your take on the cherry bowl of saliva?
This whole movie feels like the line that the thing that John Waters says, where just intrinsically shocking someone isn't enough if that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
That's my take on that. That's my take on everything. That's my take on the mountain of vomit. Besides, of course, the mountain of vomit's secret meme ability.
Gotta work on that GIF, and it'll be looping, so it'll be like coming out and then going back in, then coming out, then going back in.
Yeah, when it goes back in, like when it comes out, that's when you read the news the first thing in the morning, and then when it goes back in, that's when you keep reading the news throughout the day, and everything just keeps getting worse, but you keep looking at it again because the world is like a train wreck.
We're all just vomiting mountains and then eating it.
Yep.
We're all just deprogrammed sex slaves moving through our lives trying to chart it out.
Yep.
Maybe
anyway, have a great day, everyone. That's our
show. Chris, are you familiar at all with this director? Have you seen any of his other films? Because this is the only one of his that I've seen.
I actually have seen his other film. He only did 2 features. He's much more prominent in like art installations as well as short films. Surprisingly, he can't get a lot of financiers down to make more of this. His other film, though, I think is much more commendable. It's Rubber's Lover. I think it's Rubber's Love, actually, from later in his career. I think that was in the 2000s. Yeah, it's much more palatable than this because there's much more budget attached to it, as well as it has a very evocative monochrome, just like Tetsuo the Iron Man did. So it has a lot more going to it, and its point, it's kind of like it's also about like deprogram or like brainwash sex slaves and androids. So he's a director with a very clear message he keeps bringing up, but I think it's much better than this. I feel like you can extract more in terms of meaning out of that one than what you get from this mess.
Now, is that one also a cyberpunk film, or is that a different genre?
No, very much cyberpunk. In fact, both were collected in a DVD release that was like just Japanese cyberpunk collection, like his entire filmography. And I've always kind of wanted it, but I've never seen 964 Pinocchio before that, so now I don't want it anymore.
I think that's also out of print, that collection.
Absolutely, it has to be.
I believe that he also, I think he worked on Tetsuo the Iron Man. I'm not sure in what capacity, but I'm pretty sure he had some hand in that.
I would not be shocked at all. Cyberpunk seems like a very tight collective.
Anyway, any final thoughts on 964 Pinocchio before we move on?
I mean, I have thoughts. I just don't know how to turn them into words.
Okay.
And not just facial reactions that wouldn't carry over audio.
You need to, maybe you need to express yourself with like guttural mouth noises, and that'll get your point across.
We'll save that for another day.
All right. Next up, we have a film that was released in 1991 called Battle Girl Tokyo Crisis Wars. This is directed by Kazuo Kamizu. I have a synopsis here. When a meteor crashes into Tokyo Bay, a toxic cloud covers the city, and a new alien virus causes the dead to walk and feast on the living. To make matters worse, punk gangs terrorize the city, and the Japanese military suspiciously will not control the situation. It's up to Kiko, a one-woman army, to bring some order and save her home from the ghouls and gangs. Ken, we'll start this one off with you. What'd you think of Battle Girl?
First of all, no movie that is only 73 minutes long can ever be truly bad.
Amen.
I agree.
Second of all, the flip side of that is if you're putting a lot in your movie, then 73 minutes can feel very rushed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of hard. This is going to be a recurring theme for some of these movies. It was kind of hard to figure out what was going on in here, but not to the extent that it was in the previous one, because it basically eventually kind of got into a rhythm where it felt like a controlled chaos almost. Not quite, but it got closer than 964 Pinocchio did. Overall,
I was a little bit underwhelmed with this one. This just feels like just a super schlocky zombie movie. I guess I was kind of hoping for more, like the whole like battle armor thing. I was kind of amped up for that. Like, what's this suit gonna do? And it's just like plastic. It's just like a plastic covering on her that has like a laser sight taped onto the arm. Like, it doesn't really do much. So overall, I was a little bit meh on this. And also, my favorite line happened very early on in the movie, which is a bit of a downer. And it's when the news reporter guy was first covering the cloud, the toxic cloud, and he just goes, "It's a truly dangerous situation," as his camera guy's getting eaten.
I always have to appreciate a moment like that.
Yeah. Chris, what was your take on Battle Girl?
I think both of you nailed it down pretty quickly there. Like Ken, you're saying this is like a controlled type of chaos, and Adam astutely pointing out the poor craftsmanship in the actual battle suits. I think this film is immensely endearing because it is so it's so trying to be something much larger than it has the capabilities to do. It is stunted both by time, because this was a video release, as well as budget and whatever they could corral together to put this out on the market. And I just kind of find it all just so admirable. It's not great. All the seams are very much present. All the action is very stilted. The editing is awkward to the point of incomprehensible. And it's all around stunted in its pacing, despite the fact that it has only like 70 minutes to work with or so. But I just found it all so like a try-hard type band together type film. It just kind of worked on me. I'm sure I'm the only one who could pull that kind of positivity out of it, because outside of the adorableness of the production values, there's not a lot here.
Yeah, I was just a little bit let down with it overall. There is a copious amount of Uzi usage in this, which you got to appreciate any movie that uses a lot of Uzis. And the Uzis are everywhere in this movie. I think that was like a big thing in the 80s. Everybody had Uzis, and I guess it carried over a little bit into the early 90s as well. One thing that I liked was her visor thing that would pop down and it'd show her different things. And there was like a fence, like a laser grid fence at one point, and it just says Death Ray. It's just labeled Death Ray on her visor. Like that's a category that was programmed into this visor to detect death rays.
Accompanied by the cheapest techno sounds that they could muster together.
I also love the scene when the guy he's like the antagonist, he's like a general or something, and I guess like he sort of usurped her father, and he's the one who's responsible for these like zombies. And he, at one point, he has this like cattle prod thing, and he like zaps her with it, and he's just like standing there zapping her nonstop, and it's not doing anything because she has the battle armor on. So he's zapping her, and then he stops, and he just goes, "Anywho, don't worry about your father," and then just walks away.
Truly a moment cut from the same cloth of the very dangerous situation moment.
Yeah, a lot of the dialogue in this. I mean, obviously, I don't know how good the translations were, but
I hope it was accurate, because if it was, that is actually very good writing.
A lot of the subtitles were hilarious in this.
I really want the translation to be true, because that means this film invented the term cosmoamphetamine.
Oh yeah,
which is just wonderful.
Yeah, they're all hopped up on the cosmoamphetamine. That's what the zombies are on. And like,
as one is.
What was going on with this guy's office? Like, she goes to see him in his office, and it's like in some kind of basement, and there's like the lights are like moving around, and there's just water that's randomly dripping everywhere, and it's like, why would you want that as your office? Like, I mean, this is an army base. Why is it like that? It doesn't make any sense to me. What also didn't make sense were the explosions in this movie. There's a lot of big action scenes. There's a couple big explosions. And there's one scene when she somehow a grenade, I don't know if she throws a grenade back or just she has a grenade and tosses it, but it ends up going into a zombie's head and like caves his head in and gets stuck in his head. And it's a really funny scene, but then like they cut away and they show the explosion happen, and it's like 50 feet away from the zombie on the ground. And I'm like, what? And then at the end, you know, you have this big standoff with the general guy, and she shoves a grenade into his mouth, and he's just standing around doing nothing. I guess she breaks his arms, but he's just standing there doing nothing. And then she runs away, and then you see another explosion, which is, again, nowhere even close to this guy. And it's just like on the ground exploding. Nothing makes sense.
You gotta live in the chaos.
I guess so.
You gotta give in to it.
I guess I'm being a little too nitpicky with.
Not that I particularly like this movie. I'm just saying maybe we would all have more fun if we just fully lived in the chaos.
I think you're right. I think I should have embraced the campiness of this movie more than I did.
Like the fact that those grenades go off so far away from their intended targets makes me love this film even more. They are trying, and by God, are they missing the mark at every level? But they're not stopping.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have a point there. I think there's something to be said about the fact that, you know, this was written in a script, and they were like, okay, we have like $3 to do this. How are we going to make this thing work? Like, we can't show a person exploding. We don't have the effects budget for that. So let's just put like 2 squibs on the ground and blow it up, and that'll be good enough.
Like, we don't have a lead actress. We have a wrestler. So let's use her as well as we can. Let's not make her talk much.
Oh yeah, that is true. I did like the sort of the team that she ends up with, like the punk kids in the van. I don't know. There's certain charms to this movie, but overall, I was like, eh.
It's a time. And it's a short one, 73 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully it's not like a slog to get through or anything like that. And because this was an early movie that sort of was of this style, I mean, I think that maybe it's possible that this was influential in a lot of the later movies that would come out, like Machine Girl and all of those other ones. I don't know. That's just speculation.
It's a very clear blueprint that it's working off of, and you could see that it's not exactly high concept, and it's been recycled a lot since then in the genre of J-horror. But I just can't bring myself to hate this movie. But Ken, you make a great point. If it was longer, I would absolutely hate it.
Yes.
I don't know. Chris, are you a fan of like the J horror films like Machine Girl or Tokyo Gore Police? Are you into that style?
I am to an extent. I do love those like splatter comedies where it's all put into the effects and the grossness of it, very much like 964 Pinocchio, but with more of a sense of humor and not such a self-seriousness. But those films can also go too far in terms of like taste that I just find grating. Because yes, Machine Girl is a great time. Tokyo Gore Police is a great time. Zombie Ass Toilet of the Dead.
I was just going to bring that up. I was just going to bring that one up.
It's a very important title.
That movie is so. We had Ryan watch that like a long time ago on Ryan Watches a Movie, and I never saw it, so I watched it too, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so bad. It's like a Japanese trauma movie, basically.
It's a trauma movie mixed with that director's very clear fetishes that he doesn't want to hide anymore.
Yeah. All right. That is Battle Girl Tokyo. What is it? Battle Girl: The Living Dead in Tokyo Bay, or Battle Girl: Tokyo Crisis Wars.
Night of the Living Battle Girl Crisis War.
Night of the Living Crisis War.
Apocalypse.
Yes.
Judgment.
The Irishman, a Netflix original.
Next up, we have a film from 1995. This is called Eiko Azarak, Wizard of Darkness. These titles, man, they are so good. This is directed by Shimaku Sato. I have a synopsis here. Misa is an adorable high school girl who arrives at her new school when it is falling under an evil supernatural force. There's more to the synopsis, but I'll leave it there. I guess I'll start this one off. I enjoyed this movie. I thought this was pretty fun. I typically like J-horror movies that take place in high school. I don't know. For some reason, I just like most Japanese movies that take place in high school, unless they're like really sappy, kind of like romantic comedies or something. But I had a pretty good time with this one. It reminded me of something like Corpse Party or something like that, where you have this. It's not really a haunted school, but it feels like it. You basically have this sorceress that's taking over the school and is sacrificing these high schoolers one by one. And overall, I had a pretty good time with this one. Chris, what about you? Did you like Eiko Azarak?
I think this is a salacious good time. Much like you, Adam, I do love a J-horror set in a high school. And when you mix in messing with witchcraft that we don't quite understand, but we're going to do it anyway and reap the consequences of it, I'm all for it. I think this is a very slick, lean film that gets right to the point. There's a lot of good deaths, a lot of strange occult imagery that's pulled off quite well. And yeah, I was quite charmed with this one.
Ken, what about you? Did you like Eiko Azarak?
Oh yeah, I had a good time with all the pentagrams and the very strange deaths and the chalkboard that acted as a body count. And there's a chalkboard, and every time the number goes down, that many people are about to die. Actually, it was really funny to me because I was just thinking about, for absolutely no reason, a recent masterpiece of cinema known as Geostorm. And there's a truly great thing in Geostorm where speaking of strange built-in features of technology, the titular geostorm is built into the weather machine with a timer, giant red digital readout timer that reads time to geostorm. And I thought, why doesn't every movie have really weird countdowns in unexpected places? And then I watched this and I saw that the body count on the chalkboard, and I thought, this is exactly what all movies should have.
Yeah, I liked that, and I liked the effect. Like when it went down, how the numbers changed. I thought that looked pretty good for when this movie came out. And the movie begins with a pretty sick death in which a woman gets her head crushed by an I-beam, and so I think it starts. The movie starts off with quite a shocking.
Yeah, it really starts off at a level.
And then perhaps more horrifically, I believe the next scene involves this teacher who's just groping all the female students as they enter the school grounds for no apparent reason. He's just out right there at the gate, just groping them up, just touching them.
It lets you know.
Very upsetting.
It lets you know right away what kind of film this is, and I appreciate it for it. It didn't mess about. Like, you know what you're getting into with Iko Azarak.
Exactly. And then they, of course, he gets his comeuppance. We'll say that. I like how they first just give him diarrhea. Like that's his punishment for sexually molesting the female students. They just give him some diarrhea.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, and then he dies. So
yeah,
he didn't die from the diarrhea. It should be noted. The person who is at the root of all of this was the one who ended up killing him, and the Misa, who's the new girl, who's, I guess she's a witch. I mean, they say it at the end that she's a witch, but they don't really explicitly say that any other time in the movie.
It's much better explained in the manga that this is based off of. Like her whole deal is protecting these schools from this kind of magical energy that's getting out of control. But with this film, it's like, we can't start there. We got to smash ahead right away.
They do allude to that in later on, where they say like she at the other schools that she was at, a bunch of people would get hurt or killed. So yeah, they do allude that she's been at this for a while, but also in the context of the movie, it doesn't really make sense. You're like, well, what happened in those other places? What's going on there? And she just tells like her new boyfriend, like, you can't get close to me, you'll get hurt. And it's like, why? Like, what's going on here?
It's a cinematic universe now.
Were there any other? Was this the only movie version of this?
No, this had a whole like straight to video series that followed it. I think it's like 4 in total.
Oh, it is a cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
There you go, Ken. You can get caught up on your Iko Azarak universe.
The Iko Azarak Wizard of Darkness cinematic universe. The EAWD CU.
Oh my god. I don't know. I might check out some of these other ones in this series now.
Gonna check out the EAWDCU?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm gonna dive in, take a deep dive into it. So it turns out, and this is like, I probably should have said this at the top, these are movies from the 90s, so they're gonna get spoiled. But it turns out that they think that it was a teacher behind all of this stuff. There's a twist that happens at the very end when it turns out no, it wasn't the teacher. It was like her friend from school, which that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. It felt like a twist that was just added in there for just the sake of having a twist. But the up until the very, very end, you believe that it's the teacher who's behind all of the shenanigans that are happening. And the teacher has this sexual relationship with a student, a clearly underage student, but I'm not sure what the point of that is either. Maybe I missed something.
I think that's also in the manga. If I'm like, I've not read it, but I'm just going to assume that it's there, because I don't think these are the type of filmmakers just to throw in a needlessly gratuitous lesbian sex scene for no reason, right?
Of course not.
Of course not. They're very scrupulous.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I just don't feel like they really went anywhere with that. Like I thought that relationship was gonna have some bearing on the plot, but it really doesn't seem to. And maybe that is explained more in the manga series. I thought the effects work was good. Did you guys like the effects work?
I love that chalkboard. I'm thinking about that chalkboard again.
Yeah, it was a
good stuff.
You had it got pretty gory. It wasn't over the top gory, but there was some stuff there. Like there were blood geysers. There were definitely blood geysers going on in this movie. Some decapitations.
Well, gotta have some of those.
I was kind of in this first set of movies. I was hoping for more blood geysers, to be honest. I feel like we were kind of missing out here.
Maybe we'll have to try again.
Yeah, the blood geyser quotient is far too low for this first set of movies.
Hopefully, we'll have some blood geysers in the next few.
Chris, what did you think of the effects work? Did you find it to be notable, average, poor?
I thought they were very commendable. I thought they did their job very well, and luckily there's quite enough in there to string the film along, especially when we're in that kind of countdown mode where all the students are getting picked off. Two highlight effects that I think are very interesting. One of the unlucky students gets her head taken off by a window closing, which I don't think I've ever seen outside of silent comedy. So that was interesting. And the effect of the friend, Mizuki, losing her face to Lucifer, I've never seen anything like that. I don't know how they map that kind of texture onto her face, but I thought it was really interesting. So I think there's enough here to really kind of to recommend or at least applaud them for their gore work.
Yeah, and there's also a scene where towards the end, Misa, she disintegrates like sand, where she's slowly disintegrating, and I thought that looked really good too. I mean, you have
a 2019 mood.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have this 90s CG in here, which is pretty rough around the edges, but I thought that they did the best they could with it. And I mean, normally when you're watching an Asian film of this era, the CG is years behind what they were doing in Hollywood at the time. But I thought that here it was pretty on par.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I could absolutely agree with that.
Also love another good short movie. I think 83 minutes.
Yeah, it was nice and breezy. I thought that it really picked up the pace once they got trapped in the school. That's when they really kicked it up a notch. I thought everything up until that point was fine, but as soon as they got trapped in the school and started getting picked off one by one, that's when it grabbed my attention fully. Any final thoughts on Iko Azarak? I love saying it. I just love saying the title.
I love saying EEA WDCU.
Ken, I know you love the chalkboard effect. How much more would you love it if above the number it said count time to Iko Azarak?
This would be my favorite movie of all time.
Oh man, if they included that. Oh boy.
Well, there's one thing I could have in this world. It would be that.
All right, our final film for this part 1 of the Halloween special is Parasite Eve from 1997. This is directed by Masayuki Uchii. I have a synopsis here. Toshiaki is a biologist who is doing major research on mitochondria when his beautiful young wife is tragically involved in a car accident, which leaves her brain dead. In desperation, he steals her liver from her body in order to receive the mitochondria from it to resurrect his wife from the dead. I don't completely agree with that synopsis at all. He doesn't steal the liver. It was given to him.
It's a big liver heist in this movie.
And I'm not even sure.
Liver.
I mean, did he want to resurrect his wife from the dead, or just use her liver to further his research with the mitochondria?
Maybe he had a lot of feelings about it.
I don't think he was setting out to regrow his wife.
But then he thought, as long as we're here.
Chris, what did you think of Parasite Eve?
I think with this collection of films that we reviewed for this show, the disparity in budget became most obvious with this one. This is a real, quote unquote, real film compared to the other three. There's a lot much more craft going on in terms of where money was allocated and how well it was used.
There's extras who actually know they're in a movie.
Right. It's a rarity. And for that, I think it's the most like solid of the watches, but I think it's the least in terms of memorability. This is like a very canonical text in J-horror. It's based on a very popular novel and was adapted into an extremely popular video game series. And I don't know about it. The effects I feel weren't as endearing as in Battlegirl or Eco Azarak. They show their age much more than those two films, weirdly. And it's very hard to parse what is going on in this film. I think it's playing on a kind of anxiety and ignorance about biology in its audience, because I'm not sure the average person would know what a mitochondria is and think that this is an actual possibility.
Yeah.
It's the powerhouse of the cell.
It's a film. Right. It's all about the oppression. It's the oppression of the mitochondria, and that's what it's about.
Which is an alien species, we are led to believe.
Did you know that we're filled with aliens? All of our cells come from other planets. Hi, I'm Marianne Williamson, and I'm running for president.
Is this a Scientology text?
Yes. Written and directed by L. Ron Hubbard.
I did read that the writer of the novel, Hideaki Sena, he worked in a lab. Like, he worked with mitochondria, and that's what gave him the inspiration for writing the novel. And because it was like a part of his theory that they were like these living organisms and whatever. But I'm not a scientist, so yeah, a lot of the theories behind it, I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna go with it.
I want to say though, you know how I was saying that I liked that the last two movies were short? I didn't like that this one wasn't.
Yeah. This is 2 hours, so this is
exactly 2 hours.
2 hours even.
Yeah.
Sometimes you really feel it.
I do. It's funny because I also saw the jump in quality with this one over the others that we watched. I mean, it's night and day. The level of quality that this one had in comparison to those. But I did think it was interesting that I was kind of expecting more in the way of like effects, like special effects work and stuff, because I am familiar with Parasite Eve video games, and there's like all kinds of crazy monsters and stuff in the games. And I was thinking, I didn't think it would be to that level, but I thought it would be just more. And for the most part, there's not a whole lot happening here as far as like big horror sequences or action sequences. It's pretty subdued, and it was a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, there's a lot of like body horror attached to this, especially with the girl character who would be housing this mitochondria baby that's produced in the plot of this film that actually happens. And there's a lot of very J-horror kind of trope of like the return of the repressed in terms of the family and those severed ties. But there's not a lot going on in terms of either like body modification or like a hard horror, not even like really science fiction horror, because especially with the deaths that are going on in this film, because I don't know how a mitochondria would kill somebody, but I didn't think it would be through setting them on fire.
Yeah. So
of course, this movie is really just about a thing that happens to also be named a mitochondria.
Yes. Yeah. So when Eve takes like her form or human form, she has pyrokinesis and she can just light people on fire, which I think leads to...
Which really comes out of nowhere.
It comes out of nowhere, and I think that it leads to probably the best sequence, which is at the very end of the movie when she lights the dude on fire and his arms are on fire. She just lights his arms on fire, and he just he pays it no mind. He's just like, whatever, I don't care. He doesn't. He's just like, give me a hug.
As it's now my duty to reference this movie on every podcast I do from here on out, almost reminds me of the wonderful finale from that American masterpiece, The Rage Carry 2.
Here we go. I knew it. I knew as I was watching this, when the pyrokinesis stuff started up, I was like, here we go.
You knew that was exactly where my mind went.
Yeah. I was like, he's going to mention The Rage. I know it.
It's a good movie. I'm not even joking anymore. It's good.
I think you stand alone on that one.
Yeah.
I've heard another person say it.
Oh, two. Okay.
3 actually, although that was the director. We're all in agreement.
This is another movie where the lab that this takes place in, like, what the hell kind of lab is this? It looks like some kind of dingy, dirty, poorly lit basement that does not look really to be a conducive environment for lab work at all. It looks like they're in some sort of warehouse doing these experiments, and it's supposed to be like a high-tech laboratory. And the hospital bothered me too. Like, what the hell kind of hospital is this where they have these this weird sophisticated high-tech security system where they can make these like steel doors drop down
Right,
in the hallways. And not only that, but like there's so many scenes in this movie that take place in the halls of this hospital, and I think it's just the same hall that they shoot over and over again. And there's like no lights on in the hallway, and there's nobody there. And it's like, what kind of hospital is this? And then it got me thinking about how there's so many movies that take place in hospitals where whatever scene it is, there's like no one in the hospital. There's like no one in the halls. And I'm like, what?
A lot of movies set in hospitals that don't look like a hospital.
Yeah, like they're all abandoned. Like that's such a terrible trope. I mean, if you ever go to a hospital, there's people everywhere all the time. And that bothered me. And in the scene when the janitor is walking down that exact hallway, dragging the wet mop behind him for some reason, and the janitor walks by a door that has a bloody handprint on it, on the glass, and he doesn't notice it, and he just walks by. What was that handprint? Like, what was that bloody handprint all about?
Just there from a previous surgery?
Makes no sense. I thought that they were going to come back to it and be like, oh, well, it's the monster. It's Eve or whatever.
There's so many unanswered questions in this movie, like, where are the handprints coming from? Why is this hospital, the hospital hallway, look like a Catholic school or something?
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't look like a hospital. This looks like a place where you could stage a decent production of, like, Bear, a pop opera or something. I don't know who that's a reference for. That's a reference for 5 people. Have fun with that, kids.
Overall, though, I did enjoy it. I will say that this is a movie that like I've been meaning to see for ages, and I'm glad that I'm seeing it now. I did enjoy it overall, but there's just not much to it. Like you said, Chris, I just don't think it's very memorable.
Yeah, I think it has elements that really speak to its favor. Like, for example, the music by I always don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's Joe Hisaishi, who's like the known composer for both Ghibli and Kitano. And I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how they're able to get him in for this film, but it works wonders for like the tone and mood that it tries to set.
It's a good score. Although seeing his name there, it kind of felt like when you see a bad movie and then it has a very famous composer. It's like when it's like how like John Williams. You find out that John Williams composed a score for The Book Thief.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
The Book Thief.
Oh, because see, I was thinking it's like I can't believe I'm going to reference this movie, but it's like the Cat in a Hat from 2003, which was shot by Emmanuel Lubezki.
I always forget about that.
It's like, what are you doing? Who had dirt on you?
Guess we all gotta get a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Chris, how familiar were you or are you with the Parasite Eve universe, like the lore behind this?
Oh, the Parasite Eve universe, the PEU?
Yes, the PEU.
Not very. I knew about the novel and I knew about the video game series. I actually didn't know there was a live action film specifically about the novel. And when I heard about it, much like you did, Adam, I thought it was going to be like more based around the video game.
Yeah, actually, the video game is a sequel. So
okay.
yeah, so the video game, the first video game takes place after the events of the book and the movie, and apparently the Hideaki Sena like signed off on the game, and he liked it. I think that was just the first one though. So they did make a sequel, and I think they made a spin-off game as well called The Third Birthday, I think it was called.
Yes.
And that was like a PSP game. I remember playing that, and I remember really liking it, and I did like the first two Parasite Eve games a lot too. Those are classics. But
yeah, they fit well into like the survival horror boom at that time, because they're kind of like really based off of the Resident Evil model, much like this film itself is also like a bio horror.
Yeah, and it's they were published by Squaresoft, now Square Enix. They were very popular games for the PlayStation 1, PS1 era games. I read that the book has a different ending than the movie. And so in the movie, he catches on fire, he hugs Eve, and that's pretty much it, right? Yeah, the girl's okay.
Yeah.
In the book, she actually gives birth to the kid, and the kid dies because Eve was wrong in thinking that like this child would be like sort of the perfect organism, where she thinks that it can sort of change its genetic makeup at will and sort of change and adapt into being this like perfect organism. But it turns out because there's human male sperm involved, it doesn't work. And like when the baby's born, it just constantly changes gender over and over again, and then it dies. And then the guy like sacrifices himself and kills the baby or something. I didn't read the book.
It's a lot. It seems like a lot.
Yeah, it seems, and what they don't really, I don't know if they really convey this in the movie, but there's like a sex scene involving like when she comes back, when she first forms into like goes into her human form, she has sex with the guy, and the reason that she's doing that is so that she can procure his sperm, and I guess somehow that impregnates the girl.
Yeah, thankfully we're spared whatever that would look like.
Yeah.
You've got to be thankful for the little things in life, I guess. Like not having to see whatever that would be.
Mm-hmm.
Because, having watched this, most recently having watched this today, having watched this in a post-964 Pinocchio world, I couldn't handle anymore.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think the book was probably a lot more graphic and intense than the movie was. The movie's fairly tame, I would say. And it wasn't scary at all. I was kind of hoping that it'd be kind of frightening, but I didn't really find, like, there weren't that many horror elements to it, and I didn't find any of it to be scary at all. In fact, looking back at these first four movies, I didn't really find any of them to be scary, which I don't know if that says something about me or the movies.
That's the perpetual question, isn't it?
I don't know. I would take you to task on 964 Pinocchio whether or not that's scary, because if I can't call that scary, I don't know what to call it.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess you're right on that. There was.
I just think I don't know how to be scared anymore in the same way after watching 964 Pinocchio. I feel like at some point in the last 30 minutes we really just had a subconscious desire to talk about 964 Pinocchio again, and we were just kind of working through it in our minds.
Well, there was this one scene in 964 Pinocchio that I was just reminded of when she, I think it's after she starts like freaking out, and they like made her mouth and eyes bigger.
Yes.
And that was legitimately creepy. Like that, yes. That was a very kind of disturbing moment.
I kind of want to talk about that movie just a little bit more again. I was kind of playing like partially in my mind through that. That's why I was distracted. That's why I was just pulling a bunch of obscure theater references back there, because half of my brain was just on 964 Pinocchio again, and I was just going on autopilot for a while back there. My God, that movie.
Yeah,
I'd like to apologize for anything I might have said in the last half hour. I don't remember what it was.
it's pretty intense. What as far as like intense Japanese movies, where for both of you where does 964 Pinocchio sort of stack up?
Well, I've personally seen a lot, up to and including some of the guinea pig films and some of the Red Room films, which is just torture gore porn for the sake of its own spectacle. And those were extremely uncomfortable, and I never want to visit them again. But there's just something about 964 Pinocchio that, because it's better than those films, I dislike it more. Like, it doesn't have the decency to be on their trash level.
Yeah, there are too many moments where it feels uncomfortably competent.
I can see that. Yeah. I actually found Tetsuo the Iron Man to be more disturbing than 964 Pinocchio, just on a base level, just I don't know, for some reason that movie really got under my skin. And I've seen some of the guinea pig movies too. The one that I think it was the third one that Charlie Sheen like called the FBI because he thought it was a snuff film.
Yeah, that was either the second or third one
I think it was the third one where it was just like it was like somebody, it was in black and white, I think, and it was really messed up.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess all those guinea pig movies sort of are. I also wanted to mention this movie called The Untold Story, which he's like a serial killer who murders people and chops them up and puts them into meat dumplings and sells them at a shop, and people are unknowingly eating human meat. And that movie is really, really fucked up. So if you're looking for something fucked up to watch, Chris, check out The Untold Story.
Well, I'm not normally, but I'll keep the recommendation in mind.
I mean, here in our post 964 Pinocchio world, we're always looking for new ways to experience experience more extraordinary horror.
Is life just broken up to pre and post 964 Pinocchio? Is that how we move forward?
I think so.
I think so, yeah. That's just where we are now.
Like, it's just going to set us down this dark path where we're looking for something to get the taste of 964 Pinocchio out of our mouths. So we're trying to find something that will wash our minds of it. So we're looking for something that's even worse, even more depraved. And
I don't know. It feels like that never ends. It feels like that turns into like the last scene of David Cronenberg's Crash.
It's just this downward spiral we're on now.
Maybe
all right,
the next one.
So out of these four, let's sort of pick our favorites of the four. Chris, what is your top one out of this first set?
Out of the four we watched, I think three of them have a lot to offer you, and there's something to find in each of them. But I was just really drawn to Eiko Azarak, Wizard of Darkness. I just found something so salacious, so weird, and so effective about that film, and its very tight plot structure. And I'm just a sucker for kids messing with witchcraft and getting their comeuppance tenfold. I think that's a great plot that should be done more often.
100% agree. Ken, what's your favorite?
I've also got to go with the seminal first film in the EEAWDCU. It's for much of the same reason. It's tightly structured. There's a lot of unexpected moments in it, and the chalkboard.
I'm actually right there with you. That's my pick too. I think that one's definitely. It's funny. I never even heard of that movie or the series before, but now I'm like slightly interested in going into that universe. See what else is going on in the Eiko Azarak universe. Any final thoughts before we close it out this week?
I do have one thought that wasn't brought up in the film we talked about the most, 964 Pinocchio. Instead of saying the end, it just says out.
That's right. Oh my god, I forgot.
You're really giving me flashbacks to now specific images in that movie just by mentioning an image in that movie again.
I apologize, but I have never seen a film just
Out.
We're done. And I
mean,
don't-
if I was sitting in a theater watching 964 Pinocchio, you would not have to tell me to get out at the end. I would be sprinting.
Oh man, that's amazing.
I probably would have bailed at the mountain of vomit scene.
Oh, yeah, that would have, man. Vomit scenes, I can't handle vomit scenes. I despise vomit scenes in movies. So that was not pleasant.
I don't really mind them, but it turns out I have a lot of problems with ones that go on for 8 minutes.
I'm okay. I'm all right with them if they're fake. Like, so if it's like a fake vomit scene, I'm okay with it. But if it's an actor who's really vomiting, that's when I get really not queasy or anything, but just like I don't like it. I do not enjoy it.
I'm also normally okay with them, but when this actress takes it to the next level, and I'm not going to repeat what she does with the vomit, but we all know what it is, I'm out.
Like the finale says. Thank you so much for listening. You can send us your questions and topics to podcast@filmpulse.net. If you have a minute, consider reviewing us on your podcast platform of choice. And remember to tune in to our Saved by the 90s feed, where we will have part 2 of this Halloween special. I might even throw it up on the main feed. I haven't decided yet.
It's an extravaganza.
For Ken Bakley and Chris Luciantonio, we'll see you next week.